Imagine waking up to a typical day in New York City. The morning hum begins as thousands of New Yorkers get ready, unaware of the unprecedented event that's about to strike. As dawn's light spreads across Manhattan, a single, incomprehensible flash suddenly fills the sky, a flash so bright it turns night into day, blinding anyone looking in its direction. This is the first, horrifying sign of the unthinkable. A nuclear weapon has detonated over New York. The explosion's force shatters windows and reverberates through the city, with buildings within a mile of ground zero disintegrating instantly. Central Park, Midtown, and surrounding areas experience total devastation. The shockwave expands outward, knocking people to the ground miles away, flipping cars, and bringing down structures that have stood for decades. The entire city echoes with sounds of collapsing concrete and twisted metal, coupled with an eerie silence as New Yorkers struggle to comprehend what just happened. Within moments, the sky begins to darken. A rising mushroom cloud looms over the city, releasing intense heat and a powerful surge of radiation. The dust and debris block out the sun, casting a surreal, fiery glow over the skyline. Anyone within a 3-mile radius who wasn't protected now faces the risk of severe radiation exposure. For many, survival instincts kick in as they search for shelter and loved ones amidst the chaos. In a matter of minutes, the communication networks collapse, overwhelming both emergency responders and news outlets. The lucky few able to get any signal find their screens flooded with ominous alerts: stay indoors. Do not approach ground zero. Without information, fear spreads like wildfire as people speculate on what happened, and questions remain unanswered. Across the Hudson River, New Jersey witnesses the blast's repercussions, though to a lesser degree. Yet, the panic here is just as intense. Thousands of residents rush to flee, clogging highways and jamming any available exit route. As law enforcement tries to manage the flood of people, authorities scramble to mobilize. Helicopters and emergency vehicles begin converging toward New York City, though the scale of the disaster challenges even the most coordinated response efforts. Meanwhile, under the streets of New York, subway tunnels have turned into makeshift shelters. Hundreds of people huddle in the dimly lit spaces, some bleeding from the effects of shattered glass, others in shock. The air grows thick with dust, and the sound of hushed whispers and distant cries fill the tunnels as New Yorkers try to process the devastation above. Above ground, a heavy rain begins to fall, dark and toxic, a byproduct of the intense heat pulling moisture into the mushroom cloud and releasing it as radioactive fallout. This black rain coats everything, soaking people, buildings, and the debris-strewn streets in a tainted residue. Exposure to this fallout rain spells danger, especially for those unaware of the risks it brings. Amidst this disaster, a mother searches for her child who was headed to school in Lower Manhattan that morning. She pushes through chaotic streets, ignoring the pain of her injuries, her desperation stronger than fear. She isn't alone. Others search frantically for family members, navigating the rubble and dodging fires that have erupted across neighborhoods. In every direction, small pockets of survivors attempt to organize, each seeking familiar faces, each hoping against hope. Inside a midtown hospital, doctors and nurses work around the clock to treat the wounded. Medical supplies dwindle fast, and the staff operates under almost impossible conditions, improvising with what's available. The facility, packed beyond capacity, transforms into a grim testament to the resilience of medical staff as they fight to keep the injured alive with minimal resources. As the day progresses, emergency responders receive a series of escalating alerts. Radiation levels near ground zero continue to rise, putting even rescue operations at risk. First responders, many of them untrained for nuclear fallout, push forward, entering zones close to the epicenter to rescue anyone left alive. These brave individuals know they're risking their lives, yet their sense of duty compels them to continue. Across the nation, Americans are glued to their screens. News anchors, visibly shaken, report live, struggling to relay the scale of the devastation. Other cities watch in horror, recognizing that New York's tragedy could have been theirs. People in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Miami wonder if they're next, if more attacks might follow. National defense systems go on high alert as officials scramble to determine the source of the attack, fearing this might not be an isolated incident. Throughout the day, government agencies deploy radiation specialists to determine safe zones and evacuation routes. Manhattan, for all its towering structures and tightly packed spaces, now resembles a ghost town in some areas, with other parts still crawling with survivors and the injured. Emergency announcements urge residents to stay away from certain bridges and tunnels as they may be structurally unsound due to the explosion's impact. A group of survivors finds refuge in a small church, where they gather supplies and listen to a battery-powered radio, the only connection to the outside world. News of humanitarian aid arriving from neighboring states provides a glimmer of hope, and plans for mass evacuation begin to form. They brace themselves for the long journey ahead, knowing they'll need every bit of their strength to endure. In neighborhoods just outside Ground Zero, a few remaining grocery stores and pharmacies are overrun by desperate New Yorkers trying to grab any last supplies. Resources quickly run out, and tensions rise. Local shop owners, initially sympathetic, grow defensive as desperation mounts. Some band together with others to share resources and ration food, while others take more drastic measures to protect what little they have left. As darkness falls on New York, the city feels even more foreign, its once familiar lights extinguished by the day's destruction. Generators hum in the distance, powering makeshift aid stations, while military forces arrive to enforce order and establish secure zones. These safe zones mark the first organized steps toward recovery, as soldiers and medics help distribute food, water, and basic medical supplies. Meanwhile, outside the city, evacuation centers spring up across New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. Rows of cots line school gymnasiums, where survivors try to rest, though few can sleep. Family members scan the crowds, searching for loved ones, hoping for reunions despite the harrowing odds. As dawn approaches, Ground Zero remains off-limits due to extreme radiation levels. Specialized hazmat teams finally arrive, beginning the grim task of mapping out the damage. Their preliminary reports indicate that certain sections of Manhattan may remain uninhabitable for years, maybe even decades. The fallout from this day is global. Allies express their condolences while world leaders convene in emergency sessions, seeking to address not just the incident but the catastrophic risk of nuclear warfare in populated cities. It becomes clear that the impact of this event reaches far beyond New York City, shaking the world's perception of safety. A city known for its resilience, New York faces its greatest challenge yet. The survivors, though battered and broken, embody the spirit of their city. While the scars of Day Zero will mark the city forever, the people of New York, though forever changed, carry on. Amidst the rubble and ruin, stories of bravery, sacrifice, and survival emerge, a testament to the human spirit that endures even in the face of unimaginable disaster. As the sun rises over the horizon, Cutting through the smoke-filled air, hope begins to reawaken. This is the dawn of a new era for New York, a city rebuilding from ashes, united in loss and hope. The world watches, uncertain yet inspired, as New York takes its first steps toward a future reshaped by Day Zero.